everybody? This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Dr. Yves Salomon-Fernández, who is the president of the Urban College of Boston. Dr. Yves, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Paul. I'm delighted to be here.
Pleasure to have you on. Again, the word doctor in front of anyone's name, right? I could only imagine the stories and the hardships, the goods and the bads that you had to go to get that title. So I'm gonna love to hear about those stories in a few. But before we
Absolutely.
actually dive into those stories, give us just a little bit of an understanding of your cultural background and where you grew up.
Well, I'm originally from Haiti. I was born in Haiti, and my family migrated to the US when I was 12. And it was a tumultuous time when I lived there. We had multiple successions of political leaders. There was a lot of political violence. Things were very hard, and eventually leading to an embargo. And my parents decided to bring the family over to Boston, and that's where we set roots.
Now you said family. Talk to me. How many siblings we talk about?
Oh, I'm the oldest of seven. So
Hey,
that
I
is
knew
a
something was gonna
huge,
come up because you gave me that
yes,
look.
yes. It's a
Okay,
huge
7.
family. And I tell people I became an adult the minute we came to the US.
Wow.
Suddenly I had adult responsibilities for myself, for the household, for my siblings, and I had to grow up very quickly. And the expectations on me as a 12-year-old were very high. And as the oldest and as a girl, as you can imagine,
Mhm,
they were very high. But it also helped me in leadership. So those
mhm,
leadership skills that I began to develop very early on, that responsibility, the accountability, all of those were skills that I brought to my journey, my professional journey.
mhm, mhm. Now that and I know you do have obviously in your profession, the title. Obviously, leadership is obviously a big thing. But I'm hearing that it started off at it probably started a little bit earlier than 12. But at 12, when
Yes.
I got to the States, it was like you had to step into leadership mode. So I
Exactly. Exactly. So it was difficult, and coming to a new environment where I didn't know the language, I didn't know the culture. It was cold. Haiti is a stark difference from the U.S., especially the Northeast, the New England region, where people tend to be a little bit more insular. They keep to themselves. They're a little bit colder in addition to the weather being also colder. So it was definitely a transition, but we were able to build community here. We moved to Boston. We moved to a little area called Dorchester. Actually, Dorchester is quite big
yep,
now.
yep, yep.
And I went public school in Dorchester and then in the Fenway area. And it was a monumental change in terms of culture, in terms of food, in terms of weather, in terms of geography, the politics. There was just so much going on at that time in the world, also in the early 90s.
Mhm.
So it was a journey for sure.
How are you juggling all this? Like, how are you? Obviously, you're trying to figure it out yourself, but you still got to be a leader to your siblings. Like, how are you juggling all this?
Yes, it was tough, the adaptation, and also having parents who were very old school, very religious, and who didn't understand things like the importance of extracurricular participation on your college, career and options and choices, not understanding things like filling out financial aid forms, and not understanding the importance of building friendships and all of that, what that means for your mental health when you are kept in an area where you're told you have no friends, you have no one, it's just you. And we know that humans like interaction, most people do. Whether you're introverted
That
or
is true.
extroverted, we need people, right?
Yeah, nah, you do.
Um, So my parents had a lot of fear, and they did what they thought was best for us, which was to keep us from the outside environment as much as possible. And for me, immediately when I came here, I was responsible for doing the laundry for the whole family, and we didn't have laundry facilities at the house, so that meant going to the laundromat, taking all of the clothes to do um, grocery shopping for the entire family. My family would give
Mm,
me money, $50, and $50 had to feed six of us at the time, and then it grew to seven of us at the time, and then eventually all the children and our parents. So it was a lot of responsibility, making sure that my siblings did their homework, making sure that they too weren't staying in the streets after dark, and all of that. And they were involved in extracurricular activities, although I wasn't. They played sports and they played instruments, but it was my job to look over them and ensure that the household ran as it was supposed to, while at the same time also doing very rigorous work at the high school that I attended.
mm,
So it was a challenge. I
wow,
learned to multitask very early on in my
wow,
life.
wow. You
Yeah.
you became a manager. Let's get real.
Yes.
you,
Yes.
you had a
12 years
full-time
old.
job.
That's right. That's
You
right.
have, that's managerial roles right there. Not even just
That's
leadership. Let's
right.
talk about managerial roles. You were like I had
That's
to
right.
get the laundry, I had to go out, I had to come back, had to cook. That's just, you was just managing right there. You had a whole bunch of artists living in the house, and you were managing all of them. So
Exactly.
kudos to you on that. How did that experience like shape your academic career? Or your
Haitian
identity.
culture really emphasizes education and education over money and status. If you don't have an education in Haitian culture, you basically are looked down upon, especially if you had the opportunity and you didn't seize it, right? There are many people who don't have the opportunity, and Haitians generally will not knock you down because circumstances are hard. But if you have the opportunity to get an education, as we did when we moved to the US, we definitely wanted to seize it. And so that was, for me, really important. And my parents drove me to be very academic. I went to Boston Latin School, which is a very rigorous high school, one of the best in the country, and certainly the first public school in the United States. And being in that environment with so many other kids who were academically driven, who were supported by their families, who had the
Mm,
resources, kids who came from families that had achieved the American dream, I could see what it was like. I could see that manifestation. I could see what could eventually happen to me, the kind of life that I could have if I have an education. And I was also very fortunate to have people who took an interest in me. I had teachers, I had friends, I had parents of my friends who said, you know what? You're motivated, you're a hard worker, we'll show you the ropes, we'll help you. And sometimes it was just going for a meal at someone's house
mm,
and
mm,
seeing how their neighborhoods look very different from the economically challenged neighborhood that I lived in, which was, back then kind of considered the ghetto. So seeing that contrast between where they live and where I live, the kinds of jobs that my friends' parents did, um, and the kind of work-life balance they had, the vacations they were able to take, the
mm,
travel
mm,
and family things they were able to do while my parents were holding down two, three jobs each, trying to
mm.
figure out how to make ends meet. It became very clear to me that I needed an education to be able to aspire to have the kinds of lives that my friends' parents had. So seeing it, I knew it was possible. Seeing it was believing it, and believing that it was possible, and having people who just out of the kindness of their hearts who took an interest in helping me was also significantly helpful. So I feel indebted to those folks
Okay.
as much as I do to my teachers.
Mm, mm. Proximity is key. Just
Absolutely.
proximity is key. So if
Absolutely.
you're in that environment, and I grew up in the Bronx, so one of the key things they said to us growing up all the time: closed mouths don't get fed. So
That's right.
if we, as first or second generation immigrants, come here and just think, okay, we're just going to stay in our bubble, just work hard, but you have to kind of step out of that bubble and kind of see what's going
Exactly.
on around you and pull from that and then bring it back to the house. So you can tell your siblings, hey, look, there's life bigger than what we saw in Haiti, what we saw here in Boston. It's out there for us. We just have to go and get it. But we have to, but I know at times we're afraid to take that step. You never know what
That's
you're going to be
right.
met with. You know, you might be met with someone who just doesn't respect where you come from, and it turns into a whole bunch of stuff. So, and being in a competitive environment, you know, being in one of those rigorous schools, like how did you manage, you know, being in a competitive environment? You know, it's already we already know you were a manager
Yeah.
at home, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
now
absolutely.
you're like leaving the managerial role. You put a book bag on, you go into school, and you're like, whew, I can kind of kick it for a second, right? But then you're in
Yes,
a competitive environment and being a first generation immigrant, being a woman of color as well too.
that's
Like,
right.
how are you
That's
now
right.
navigating through this?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I gotta tell you, one of the best experiences that I had was as a student. In my senior year, I got to work with now Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she was the first Black woman uh, graduate of Harvard that I knew, alumna of Harvard, the first Black woman professional I had really close proximity to, I interacted with. She was the first professional woman with locks that I ever met. She was the first professional woman to to be in an interracial marriage. She had very high standards. She was just everything that I looked up to be, and I wanted to be an attorney at the time. And, I developed that aspiration from watching Matlock and,
Oh yeah,
those kinds of
shots
shows.
shots
Yeah,
to Matlock. That was the
that's
show
right.
right there. You turned
That's
it
right.
on in the evening time, Matlock, and it was another. Was it Matt? There was another one too.
Um, and there was another one I'm trying to remember
Law
because
and Order.
Lauren, no, no, that was before Law and Order. That was
Oh,
way
okay.
before Law and Order. Yeah,
Murder
yeah.
She Wrote.
Yeah, yeah, Murder She Wrote. Yeah, In the Heat of the Night, all those shows, they're going up the court, and here I am, Ketanji Brown Jackson, a Harvard law graduate, and she's my boss. And this isn't about watching it in television. This is in the
Yeah.
seeing this woman move in the courtroom, doing all the work and assigning me work and critiquing my work. That was such a great experience in the highlight of my career as a student. But the competition was fierce. I mean, Boston Latin School is a very competitive school. It had its mental health effects on me. I was learning how to speak English still. I was struggling with English, and we had lots of hours at night of work. But what it also did to me was it set the bar so high for me that leaving Boston Latin School, I was very prepared for college. I knew what competition looked like. Um, I also knew how I
In the
wanted
face of
to.
your competition.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I also learned how to juggle things, and I developed this habit of waking up at 3 o'clock every morning, which I still do. I think now I'm probably down to 4 a.m. But I was very productive. Yes, I did a
Wow.
lot. I took Latin. In addition to Latin, you also had to take a modern language. I took Spanish, and the school pushed you to do what we called declamation, which you do in Latin, you do in whatever foreign language you're taking, and you also do in English. So public speaking, I realized was something that I really loved. I love public
Mm,
speaking.
mm.
So very early on, I started doing that. I developed that interest, that passion. I also developed an interest for opera, and I used to sing opera, and I
Wow.
just Yes, so I didn't play an instrument. I'm the only one in my family to not play an instrument. All my siblings do, and it was an opportunity for me to develop an artistic side of me. And I also became deeply passionate about the environment. That's when I started learning about the environment, and my friend and I started the environment club. So there was this aspect where there was a lot of competition because BLS pit students against students. That environment did that,
Hmm.
which I don't think is healthy. Um, as an adult now, I set my own standards around what I want to accomplish, and it has nothing to do with other people. What you do in your life, that is you. What I do, the goals that I set for myself, are independent of what others think. So that also helped me in terms of figuring out disappointment, because in Haitian culture, people, we like to shame people. We do, especially kids. And you tell them they're never good enough. And so my parents' standards was perfection. As an adult, I said to myself, that is unrealistic. You can't be perfect across every dimension. And my parents aren't perfect across every dimension. So I
Yeah,
learned to say to myself, my standard is excellence. It is not perfection. I will do my best. And I'm also strategic. There are things where I'm going to give 100%, 120%. And there are other areas where, you know what, 80% is fine. Let's not let
yeah.
perfect be the enemy of good or done, you know? So I learned that, and I also learned the things that helped me to be competitive, and to gain admission into competitive schools, to work hard, and to also seek the mentorship and advice of other people, because sometimes hard work is not enough, and
Mm-hmm.
that
Hard work, or
coaching
even
mentorship.
like talent as well is not enough.
That's right.
And
That's
some
right.
people rely on that kind of things to get them through, but there's other layers to it. There's a lot of higher education, but not
Exactly.
always within the school. There's like life lessons that you got to learn. Those life lessons, I feel like a lot of the life lessons that you were learning as a young adult helped you a lot in your academic career, right? Learning how to manage
Absolutely.
at a young age, it became waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's first and foremost. That's shout out to you, right?
Yeah, that's
It's not
discipline, you
it's
know?
not even, yeah, that's discipline. I did. You had to learn discipline. You had to learn, and obviously you were coming from the Haitian background. The family members already strict, right? So this having
Hmm.
that household holding you accountable, right? It
Hmm.
then say, you know what, I'm gonna hold myself accountable, and then just
That's
like you
right.
just naturally you just adapted to all your environments and excelled because you already had like those skill sets. Which a lot of times I do hear in a lot of the conversations that I've had with thought leaders like yourself, the students that are here, people that are born in America at times have more of that laid back, lax approach when it comes to their academics. But then when you have individuals, immigrants migrating here, coming here, they're
Hmm.
like about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
And
yes,
sometimes their academics, they're at higher levels, which some of the thought leaders that
yes.
come on, they said, when I came to America, like instead of being in eighth grade, I was already moved into high school because I was
Yeah,
at that level, and I was
yes,
like, that's the difference, how we could say people might have pass bad judgment on immigrants, but look at the hard work ethic that comes with it. Majority of
that's
them,
right.
I'm saying in a sense. And you mentioned something about the languages, right? I really need to highlight that because I believe if I'm correct, you got four languages that you're very fluent in. I believe it's
Yes,
English. We got
yes,
Creole, the Haitian Creole.
yes,
We have French, and we also
yes,
have Spanish. Is that correct?
yes,
Come
yes,
on, come
yes,
on. You ain't
yes.
even have a Duolingo. You just
Yeah,
went straight
no,
to it.
there was no Duolingo. There was no Duolingo. No, I used to speak Italian. I don't say that I speak Italian anymore because I haven't practiced it and I've lost so much. And in fact, just a couple of months ago, I saw my Italian friend that I used to speak Italian with all the time, and she was like, "Eve, you can't respond to me." And I said, I know, I've forgotten so much. And so, practice is important. You don't practice a language and you lose that skill. But language is really important. That's a medium for connecting with people, for connecting with culture, for understanding people's humanity, for appreciating literature, for appreciating different people's lived experiences. And so we emphasize that in our family a lot. Um, our son, he speaks Chinese. He's almost fluent. He started
Wow.
learning Arabic. Um,
Wow.
and so
Come on.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Come
we're
on.
we're 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 trying to cover the globe in my family. We're trying to cover the major languages.
It's important.
Um,
If you travel a lot,
yes, yes,
you
we do.
see, let's
Yes,
go
it's
for it.
important. Yes, yes, you're able to engage with people in the local environment so much better and really get the most out of experiences when you travel. And also right here at home, when I tell people I've lived in Mexico and they're Mexicans and they're like, wow, I feel so honored. Where have you been? And I'd say I've been here, I've there, I've done that. And people just feel really valued, that you
Yes.
care, that you would take time to spend in their country, appreciating their cuisine, appreciating their literature, their music, their culture, their ways of life, and understanding them. And when you think about us living in an increasingly globalized society, which was certainly the case before the pandemic, but post-pandemic now, more people are working internationally, more people are working remotely, and having that understanding of different cultures and different languages is really important. Um, and even if you never leave the US, just understanding people whose cultures are different from yours, is important. Like we talk about code switching, right? That is fluency in another language, in another
Yeah.
culture, and different cultures. And there are so many subcultures within cultures.
Mm.
So that's really, to me, very important, to be curious about other people's cultures, customs, and languages.
It definitely is important. And I do admire the fact that you stood true to the Haitian Creole. Some of
Yes,
the thought leaders that have been on the show before have expressed, like, when they first came here, they felt embarrassed of speaking Creole, right?
yes,
Um, and when they're in their school, or if they found someone who was of Haitian background, they were like, okay, I could actually speak it to somebody. But I spoke it only at the house. I felt like it was only in the house I could do it. Now, because they speak Creole, and because a lot of businesses are more global and more international, now they're more of an asset within their company, where
that's
they're
right.
like, we need you to get in this contract right here and help us sell this. And you're like, okay, well, now you need my Creole. Now
That's
you need
right. That's right.
now you need my Spanish.
Exactly.
Before, it wasn't like looked on as something of a higher pedestal, but now, a lot of organizations are looking for individuals that speak several different languages because they want their companies to be global. And if
Yes,
you
they
want
see it
this,
as an asset, finally. But
yes.
I remember in the early 90s, there was a lot of stigma associated with being Haitian. And
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
yeah. And I mean, now there is too, but I feel like there is also a popularized culture, popularized Haitian culture. Haitian culture has been popularized, right? It's been put on that pedestal, as you were saying, among some circles, not all circles, because we also know people say terrible things about Haitians. But it was really hard to be Haitian, and I knew people um who would not admit that they were of Haitian heritage or were Haitian, and tried to go in the mainstream as much as possible. And those were kids, and that's what stigmatizing an entire people, an entire culture does, that people don't feel comfortable being their authentic and full selves, and they move around suppressing their identities, who they really are, rather than celebrate that. So I think we are now seeing a movement where people are understanding cultural assets and language as a cultural asset, and difference as a cultural asset. So prioritizing um, diversity and inclusion as important, and also the ability to be your authentic self in ways that are appropriate for the workplace, and what that does in terms of creating an environment of um, psychological safety, and how we know from the empirical data, the more psychologically safe you feel, the more you're going to give 100% or more
Yeah,
into your
yeah.
job.
Hundred
Um,
percent.
yeah, but if
100%.
you're busy concealing yourself because of your gender orientation, your cultural heritage,
Yeah, if you
you
always got to
can't be.
question it.
That's
Like,
right. That's
should
right.
I say something? Should I be me? And that has
Exactly.
always been a big topic, just being authentic. Everyone that has over came on, I would say at least 90% of the thought leaders that I've spoken to, and the guests on the show, they're always saying, in the end, be yourself. In the
Exactly.
end, you got to be authentic. You got to keep showing up for you,
That's
right? You
right.
can't change in this industry, and it's easy to do it because we look to our left and our right, and we're like, well, he's doing it and she's doing it, and this is the American culture. But what about the Haitian culture that I was born and raised in?
Exactly.
What about the Jamaican culture, or the the Guyanese culture? These are the cultures that I grew up with. Let me stay true to it and see it full through. versus
That's
like
right. That's
get
right.
to the door and be like, all right, let me turn my back and forget that I'm even Haitian, and it's sad
Exactly.
because there was a time, and it's still like that, but I remember closely in the 90s there was a lot of depiction on the media, social media, and then the internet where it was like bashing Haitian
Yes.
culture,
Yes.
and it was
Yes.
it was it was horrible. There was, like you said, there were people like some of your friends were probably like, well, I don't want to say I'm Haitian, right? I don't want
Yeah.
to say I speak Creole. It was kind of bad. It was definitely bad, and it's still like that today. Obviously, there's a lot of great things that do come from Haiti. Haiti is a beautiful place. I'm gonna
Yes, it
state
is.
it right here on here,
Yes, it
Zaka
is.
platform. I'm
Yes,
gonna
it
let y'all
is.
know if you haven't visited Haiti, you definitely got to go see it. It's a beautiful country,
It
has
is a
beautiful people,
beautiful
and
country.
if you are Haitian, you already know that the family, the unity that you guys have
That's
is
right.
there. You know what I'm saying? It's,
That's
it's
right.
big. It's
Very
big.
close.
What about, let's talk about when you were talking about your academic career, right? What was like a pivotal moment that helps you like break through like the barriers as a woman of color and like higher education leadership?
Yeah. Oh man, there were so many moments. But I'll tell you there were two moments that come to mind. One was when I thought I was going to defend my dissertation and my chair called me and he said, Eve, we're not going to have a defense. And I was so disappointed. And at that moment, I thought, gosh, I worked so hard. These people want me to make more changes. And I could tell he delivered the news with a heavy weight.
Mm.
Um, it weighed on him to give me that news. And I said, okay. I said, okay. And I said, Eve, don't cry. Get yourself together. And I give myself permission to cry, but I wasn't going to lament. And I said, get yourself together and go pick up your son. I went, got my boy, and we went flower picking. And that was what I did. We went flower picking. I needed that. I needed to just do something different and recenter myself and remember why I was doing this. Because I could have given up at that point. I could have said, Lord, this is so hard. It's been really hard, and
Ever since
take.
12.
That's
Come
right.
on.
I can't take another setback because at that point I'd already accepted and was working a full job. I was being a mom. I worked really far away from my job, so it was a lot going on. And I could have said, with all these things happening and the burdens, and maybe this is a bad sign that I should just focus on my work and stop. But I was committed to it, and I put in enough years that I wanted to see it through. So that was that moment, and I am forever grateful to my dissertation chair. And he and I, we still keep in touch. Dr. P, and he's always saying, Eve, just call me Eve. You're a doctor too. But it's that respect, I could never just call him Joe. Everybody calls him Joe. It's like, no, Joe, you're my buddy, my friend, my little friend. You're the person who helped me through this and who made sure that I reached that summit, that pinnacle of my education career. So I am forever grateful to him. And then the other moment professionally, I remember I was being bullied by this woman at work. And she bullied everyone. It's not like she targeted me. She just had a blanket, target everybody. She was God's gift to the world, and no one would say anything to her. And I remember I was on vacation. I left the vacation and returned to deal with something that she had created, a problem she had created. And because I was so stressed, I couldn't enjoy the vacation. So I left vacation after 2 days.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, and it was horrible. And I was just in a bad place. Was not a healthy culture, and no one had the courage to say this is not right, for anyone. And so I remember I became pregnant with my daughter, and she did something to me, and I thought, she publicly humiliated me, which she did to everybody all the time, because she was God's gift to the world, and no one else could
Mm,
measure
mm,
up.
mm.
And I remember thinking to myself, what would I say to my daughter if my daughter came to me? I was pregnant with my baby girl, and said to me, "This is how someone is treating me." would I tell her to shut up and take it? Or would I tell her that there are appropriate ways to address this? And so in that moment, I couldn't respond, but I said to myself, this is the last time this person will talk to me like that.
Mhm, mhm.
And um and it just changed everything for me because I felt like my daughter gave me courage in that moment to become the person, the leader that I am meant to be. And if I'm able to say enough, maybe other people will also have the courage to say enough. Because I wasn't high in the hierarchy of that institution, but the fact that little me could say, there is a professional etiquette. You cannot address people like this, and you certainly will not address me like this.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
my baby girl gave me that courage. So that was really a pivotal moment for me when I started thinking, this is not just about me, it's also about my legacy as a mother, what I am
Okay.
teaching my child, what I will take, what I will not take, and what I will have the courage
Mm,
to do. So, um, leadership courage is important, and it starts at home with oneself.
mm. The fact that you put your daughter in that realm, that world, you were like, wait, hold up. This ain't
That's
even
right.
about me. This is
That's right.
about my
That's right.
daughter one day will probably deal with a situation like this. And am I
Yes.
gonna tell her, well, mommy just sat down and just kind of just took the hit and just kept on doing it, right? Or you're gonna say, mommy stood up, right? And
That's
if
right.
you look at a lot of these individuals that have changed the course of time, history, it's because they stood up, right?
That's right.
And that
That's right.
story is still in the history books today.
That's right.
Anywhere if something is, it's not simple, but something as small as simple as Rosa Parks saying, "I'm not getting up," right?
That's right.
That
Not today.
story,
Not
not today.
today.
That's right. You got shirts that say "not today." You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
You have the story lives on, and just imagine like all of her family, right? Anyone in her generation, anyone her in her legacy,
Mm-hmm.
anyone would be like, you know what? I'm not gonna stand for nothing. I'm
Yeah.
gonna stand for
Yeah.
something.
That's
You know,
right.
so it's already in the DNA structure just because of the vocals that was given at that time.
That's right.
Right. So I could only imagine you taking that story and saying, "Hey, look, honey, let me tell you what mommy did." And then once you say
Yes.
that, that's when it just inspires someone to just kind of uplift themselves and be like, if my mom could do it, then I could do the same thing too.
That's
Right.
right. And the other thing that it did for me was that I also said, I will not be a silent bystander to other people getting abused. So not only am I going to speak for myself, but I'm going to interrupt this when I see it happening to someone else. So the more I developed that courage, the more I felt like I could take a stand for myself, I could take a stand for others, and I could choose when I will call in and when I will call out. And so that was really important for me. And so taking that first step, that step at first risk, and saying enough and saying no and treat me the way I treat you, because I certainly don't treat you like that, was a real pivotal moment for me.
Now, you have a lot of academic success. You know, we definitely got a lot of those, right? Leadership is in not just doctor, but your name should have another couple words after it too, right? But
You're too kind.
leadership, you have academics, your personal journey, your personal experience. Now that you're at the Urban College of Boston, right? How are you taking your personal experiences and like pushing it or implemented it into supporting the environment over there for the first or second generation immigrants?
Yeah, for me, one of the things that I've developed this year is refining my voice and telling my story and using it to inspire others. So if my story can inspire others, I definitely want to be able to have that impact. Um, and in addition to being an immigrant, one of the things that people don't know about me is that I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And I'm a survivor of like, a few different types of things. But to be able to be vulnerable, to talk about those things, to talk about how I have emerged from those hardships, from those situations to be where I am, I think is really, really important. Because often we see people who are presidents and we put them on a pedestal and they are not human. We don't know how they got there. We don't think it's possible for us. And I remember the people who thought it was possible for me, um, people I saw and who kept on telling me, yes, you should be a college president, because that was never my aspiration. It was never something I thought I could do. So to be able to say to people, it really doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is the effort that you're putting into the thing that you want to be. And sometimes you may not even see that potential in yourself, and it takes a few other people to say, you can do this. And initially, I took it as a compliment when people would say, "You should be a college president." And then I had a couple of people who said, "You don't really believe me." I said, "No, I appreciate the compliment." And I remember one guy, he said, "It's not a compliment. You can do this, and I want to help you do this." And so we had mentoring meetings, and there was really nothing in it for him. Or when I think of people who gave me scholarship money when I was an undergraduate, when I was at UMass, there was nothing in it for them. There was no return, no financial return to them.
Whew.
No other than I'm making a difference in somebody else's life. Um, so it was for me important in my role right now. It is really important for me to have other women see the impact that they can have on their own lives, but also the impact that they can have on people around them. When I look at my story, when I look at myself, what my family's been able to achieve in one generation, or even in two generations, my parents, from my parents' educational and professional achievements to my educational and professional achievements to what my kids have already accomplished, they
Yes.
are light years away. And so when you're able to be vulnerable, you share yourselves, you share the challenges that you've overcome, the obstacles that you've overcome. You talk about how hard things were when you hit rock bottom and what that felt like. Um,
Yep. Yep.
People
Yep.
feel that if you can emerge from all of that, it is possible. You are someone I know. You are someone who's tangible I can talk to. Um, and I know this is possible for me, and this isn't a wild dream. And this thing that you're telling me I'm capable of, I now know it's possible because I know what you've been through. You're not a trust fund baby. You weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
Good.
So when people hear where I come from, where I am, I hope it gives them hope. And for our students, I also hope that they realize, for most of them, we have a lot of adult students. They are doing this for themselves and for their families. And so they're able to see, this is possible. I can do this. My children, by me doing this, my children will be able to do a lot more. They will surpass me because our kids watch us and they learn
Yeah.
from us.
That's how you know you have really great leaders in your life, really great mentors, because a true um, asset of a mentor is seeing the individual light years ahead of themselves,
That's right.
right? When someone walks up to you and say, you know what? When someone saw Michael Jordan for the first time, right? They were like, Jordan, I'll let you know something. You're different from a lot of these athletes that are on the court right now. I want to let you know that we might need to find a way to
Yes.
invest in this even more. Let's get the sneakers. Let's connect you to Nike. Something happened. That's when mentorships or people that have that eye for it, right? But you have to have gone through it sometimes, for the most part,
Yes.
to know what that is. And then you're at the position right now where you have gone through a lot, where you could actually take that perspective you have and now help out other students. Like, hold up, I see you going down the wrong track right now. Let me tell you what you need to do. And now you could provide that to a larger environment of people, a lot larger, larger. You could affect, like you said, you want to help inspire people. You have a whole school to inspire people.
Yes.
And that is
Yes.
beautiful. Like that, someone saying, I just want to inspire the world. All right, but where are you doing in it? Right? And you're in the right place. You're in an environment where people are now finding out who they are as an individual. Yeah, in high school you kind of find out, but college, around that time frame, you're like, all right, it's the real world next.
Yes.
Yeah, I can still go to higher education and stuff like that, but there's going to be a choice, and this is when you start to figure it out. So you're at a great place to kind of help that, and also a great place because the accolades go past just the academics. Like you've helped in reducing, the equity gap. and proven inclusion, right? How do you
Yes.
constantly keep on developing, new things to impact that that culture of students?
It's important to look at equity, and it's important to see whether people have the same opportunities and they are achieving at the same rates. So, first thing I do, whether it's for students, for faculty, or for staff, to see where are our resources going? Do they align with our priorities? And what outcomes are we achieving and for whom? So I like to break down the information, break down the data, and see who is not doing well. And
Mhm.
we know there's certain things we already know. Um, Black males are at higher risk. Younger black males are at higher risk. If you have dependents, you're at a higher risk of dropout. You have a lot of responsibilities you're juggling. You got a job, you got all of that. So to say, okay, understanding the lifestyle of the students we serve, because most of our students are low income students, what can we anticipate will be their challenges, and how do we provide them with the supports ahead of time? So I'm not waiting
Big
for
thing.
you to say, I need help. I know the support you need to succeed. So
Mhm.
that's not rocket science. I need to put that together up front for you. And we provide things like technology, computers to our students. So I'm not going to ask you to write 1,000 word essay to tell me that you need a computer and have hoops for you to jump through. If you say you need it, I assume you need it.
Let's
Um,
go. I'm
let's
coming.
go.
I'm going back to school. I'm gonna enroll right now. I'm gonna have to get
Come
my
to the Urban
application in.
College.
You got
That's
me
right.
playing. You got me thinking right now. Let me go back to school.
And you should, and you should. So, yeah, so when people say, I need help, I don't need you to live through your trauma again to give you $500 scholarship. No, you've already been through enough. So no need to relive through that and tell me that story. If you say, I need this, my job as someone who is committed to your success, as an institution that is committed to seeing you through the end of your program, it's important for me to say, here are the resources that you need, and let's see how well we are doing as an institution. So if we're not doing well by a certain group, we need to figure out what is it about that group that we need to approach differently, and what is working with other groups that we can learn from and adapt to serve that particular group. So it's very important that we look at what the barriers are and anticipate some of the barriers that we already know. It's not rocket science, and also to gather the information from students to better understand what the
Yeah.
complexity of their lives are like and to meet them where they are. Um,
Mhm.
we are higher ed needs to change the idea of being college ready right now. Many people have problems with that. I have problems with that. We need to be student ready as a college. Life is hard, and people have been now through the trauma of the pandemic. How do we make college an experience that is enjoyable, not traumatic for them?
I respect that because, like, that was a big thing when you said, "Why would I have you fill out a 1,000 page,
Yeah.
or a
Yeah,
thousand word
1,000 word
essay?" Because
essay. Yeah.
if you need it, you need it, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
someone who's less unfortunate on the corner of the street, you're not gonna be like, "Hey, look, I know you need something to eat. I could get you something to eat, but you got to fill out some paperwork first." And no,
Yeah.
you see the person is hungry. Like,
That's right. That's
this is
right.
the interactions we should have as humans, right?
Yes.
As
Yes.
people. If someone's
Yes.
in need, you help them, right? Take this, speck out of your eye first before you take it out of someone else's, but still have that mindset to be like, look, you need help, I got you. Jumping through hoops, which a lot of institutions will do that,
Yes.
right? You got to jump through a lot of hoops, and it makes it uncomfortable for some of us, and it also makes it's not even fair, right? You don't
Yes.
even have the resources to even get that proper essay in. Like, you have a family member
Exactly.
at home who doesn't even speak English.
Yes.
How you gonna have that person read over the essay, right? Now I do know that there's a lot of technology, and I'm gonna talk about that with you, like AI. It's out there to help out, but like when it comes to the AI, like with AI emerging, even more, like there's misinformation out there. How do educators battle these obstacles when coming to the student body?
Yeah, so I would say first, I like to have an asset versus a deficit perspective on these things. Eventually, these technologies are going to become ubiquitous. When the internet was invented, when email was invented, there were people who resisted those things. And look at that, those things are ubiquitous. um how many how many phone calls do you make a day versus shooting a text or sending an email? You're not walking to somebody's office. You're not, the efficiency that it allows you gives you your time back. It gives you your resources back. Imagine if you had to go to every single office if you need something. um the time, the energy, the cost, the opportunity cost. Now you can't work because you've got to go to this office. You can't do this, all the things that you couldn't do. So I would say, first of all, embrace those technologies. We had schools that before the pandemic, people resisted embracing learning management systems. And what happened? Pandemic hits, everybody is now forced to do that. And now this has really become the way of doing business. Um, Businesses may not have their people back on site 100% of the time because now people realize the flexibility and the efficiencies they achieve. So embracing technology is important. So I would urge people to have more of a positive orientation and mindset to it, and then understanding the limitations, because technology is also not a panacea. It's not going to solve all your problems. We need
True.
to figure out what are the limitations of that technology, and does the technology perpetuate inequities? We know things like biometric data are not reliable. Yes, they can help us with a lot of things, but we also know that they discriminate against people of color. They discriminate against people with certain features. So understanding how technology can be used to make life easier, but it can also be used to harm others or exclude others or disproportionately adversely impact a particular group. So for me, it's about evaluating that technology, understanding what problem is it solving, and how does it make life easier, while also understanding um, the ways that it can be harmful. So that's my approach to all technologies. And, I encourage people to embrace technology. The world is changing. We're in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution, going towards the fifth. Get on board.
Yeah, it is. It's. I can only imagine our grandparents and our parents, right? They're probably like, "Whew, we done lived through a couple of these things already. Now
That's right.
you gonna hit me with another one." I was just getting used to using the phone. Like my
That's right.
father's like, "I'm just getting used to this." Now you're talking about AI generated stuff. It's a whole conversation, But you
Yes.
are right, utilizing those things, and I think um, as first or second generation immigrants looking to apply for college and working on your essays. There's like Grammarly and
Yes.
ChatGPT where you can say, "Hey, look, I just wrote this essay. My mother and father do not speak English at all. Like, I need your help." And you can have that
Yes.
because some people might not be able to afford a tutor or someone to help them with their work on their essay. But some of these apps are and platforms are free. People can kind of utilize them. So, but you did say the
Exactly.
right thing. There's feeling behind it. There's emotion that AI might not be able to have. So if you're
Hmm.
trying to write something a little bit more meaningful and heartful, make sure on those things. But I get you, and I appreciate you dropping
Yeah.
that gem right
So
there.
I'll say one more thing. It can be an equalizer. So to your point, people who don't have money for tutors, where my son goes to school, a lot of parents are able to afford resources for their students to help them in the college process, for instance. Um, and so technology helps that student who doesn't have the resources. And at the same time, I would also caution folks to trust but verify. Some of the information from AI is not reliable and it may not be accurate. So have a way to check that and verify that the information is in fact accurate, and use those resources. So you can never get rid of the human completely. Um, there are things that machines will never be able to do, no matter how smart and adaptive they are.
Yeah,
But it's really important for us to harness the potential of technology while also acknowledging the adverse impacts that it has on different people and the inaccuracies.
Mm, mm, mm. Eve, you were dropping some gems. You were dropping some gems.
As
Dr.
are
Eve.
you.
Sorry, Dr. Eve. Let me get to that. Dr. Eve, right? I got to say
As
that.
are you.
You know, I'm not Dr. Herman yet, but Dr. Eve, you're dropping some serious gems right there. And I'm appreciating you just diving in and giving like a very good understanding of one, your life and where you come from and how you navigated. You know, you've definitely highlighted about leadership, you management, management,
Yes.
right? And about like just higher education and the importance of certain things, mentorships. You spoke on that, you know, you doing meaningful things, inspiring people, being a human, just being a
Hmm.
person, a
Hmm.
regular human being. If someone has a need, help them out. You know, you've highlighted a lot of great things, and I can see why you are a doctor at that point in time.
Well, Dr. Herman has a nice ring to it too. So let's talk. Let's
Yeah.
talk.
Well, hold up. The Urban College got something for me over there.
No, but I've got
Oh,
some places where I can send you. Let's
you
start
know,
looking. I just
they,
had a conversation with someone today who texted me. She said, I'm thinking of getting my doctorate. Can we talk? And I got on the phone with her, understood like what she's trying to achieve, what she wants to
oh,
do with her life. So, Paul, you and I, future Dr. Herman,
I
let's get on that
appreciate that.
path.
You appreciate that. I mean, hey, look, if I can inspire people in the classroom as well too, you know, I'm down for the cause. You know, so Dr. Herman, if we could be doctor
Yes.
next together,
Yes.
and taking
Yes,
on this world
Dr.
by storm and
Herman.
fluent our first and second generation immigrants and getting on platforms like Zaka to kind of really highlight the greatness and the connections you can make just like this, just by believing in yourself, showing up for yourself, and just being the authentic you. You know, so I appreciate you saying that about me. I'm going to take that into consideration and
It's
hopefully,
true. It's true. It's not just a compliment.
yeah, okay, hopefully it comes with a laptop.
Yes, yes, we can arrange that too. We can arrange that.
Okay. I have this one last question for you because I want to kind of round it off with this. You know, I know you're giving a lot of advice, but what advice would you give to like a first generation immigrant who's aspiring to be in like a leadership role, such as yourself, right? Obviously, utilizing their academics, their personal experience, and if they're facing that adversity, like what would you recommend?
What I would recommend, are three things. One, love yourself and know that you are capable. Because if you don't have that self-love, you don't have that reservoir, it's gonna be really hard. When times get hard, you gotta have that. That's the source where you go to replenish yourself, that self-love and the belief in yourself, even when others don't, that believe in yourself. Second, I would say there is no substitute for hard work. There is no substitute for hard work. Laziness gets you nowhere. So understand that whatever you're going to achieve, you have to put the effort into it and you just got to do it. And then third thing is don't be afraid to take risks. When you take risks, there are two possibilities. You can either succeed or you fail and learn from your failure and get right back up. And so take that risk. It may feel uncomfortable. It's out of your comfort zone. The worst that can happen is it doesn't work, you don't succeed. Most risks are not life and death. So you're still going to wake up the next day, you're going to dust yourself, and you're going to keep it going. So those are my three things.
Mm. Dr. Eve. Dr. Eve, you done hit us with something big before we left off today. You know, those three things obviously are things that are tangible. It's not like
Yes,
you're saying, hey, look, you got to go buy this book, you got to run a 5 miles. No, 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 no. Love yourself. Like, okay,
yes,
you could do that right now,
yes.
right? Know your boundaries, know where you want to go, get your morals together. Like it's right there, you know. There's
Mhm.
those three things that you're mentioning, like all of those things are tangible things. And I greatly
Mhm.
appreciate you for highlighting tangible things that someone
Mhm.
can actually look at, writing notes down from this conversation and being like, I could do that. I could do
Yes,
that. And once they start to do it, they'll start to see that other things are going to transpire from that. But it has to
that's
start
right.
with them. It has to start somewhere. And if you start small, it could definitely grow to something very big, as we could see in your career and in your journey. So, Dr. Eve, On behalf of the whole Zaka movement platform, we just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to just be present with us, sharing this information, and more importantly, inspiring not only just myself but our Zaka community as well too.
Well, thank you so much, future Dr. Herman. You set the bar really high, and I just rose up to meet you. So I appreciate this
Okay,
conversation.
okay. And I just want to let all of the listeners know, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Dr. Eve, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow us on our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed Zaka wherever you listen to your podcasts.